Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's story, we explore an unexpected encounter that begins with hunger and desperation but leads to purpose and a completely transformed life. It starts with a starving widow, wandering from house to house with nothing left to her name except the fading hope that someone might show her mercy. Her clothes were worn thin, her feet bruised from walking, and her soul tired from the weight of grief and emptiness. When she knocked on the old wooden door of a quiet countryside home, she didn't expect anything more than a piece of bread to ease her hunger. But what she received instead was the beginning of a new destiny. The exterior of the story is raw and harsh. The woman's life before arriving at that door had been filled with loss, having buried her husband months before and watched her home crumble under debt. She had been turned away by many, invisible in a world too busy to care. Her face, lined with suffering, carried stories of sleepless nights and empty days. Her only possession was dignity, and even that had worn thin from the shame of begging. The house she arrived at was modest old stone walls, vines crawling up the sides, and a wooden roof that creaked in the wind. It was the last house on a winding country road, set apart from the noise and pace of the town. Nothing about the place seemed remarkable, yet behind its door lived someone whose heart still beat with compassion. The interior was a direct reflection of the man inside, simple, warm, and untouched by pride. Wooden shelves lined the walls with homemade preserves. A small fire crackled in the corner. The scent of freshly baked bread filled the space. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, comforting, and alive. The woman's eyes scanned the room with disbelief. After days without food or rest, it felt like heaven. Though her stay was not pre-planned, the man invited her in with no hesitation, guiding her gently to a chair and pouring her a glass of water. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, every crumb. Each mouthful restored something inside her, not just physically, but emotionally. She had been seen. She had been heard. The performance of the man's actions reflected not just kindness but quiet strength. He didn't question her past, didn't interrogate her motives. He simply gave. Over the next few days, he let her recover, offering not just food but space to regain her breath and dignity. He continued his daily routines, gathering firewood, tending to the garden, reading from his old books, and in time, she joined him. Her presence didn't disturb the peace, it added to it. He noticed her intelligence, the way she carefully folded blankets, her silent prayers before meals, and the deep gratitude in her eyes. She noticed his patience, his gentleness with animals, his habit of speaking softly to the trees when he walked. It wasn't love at first sight, it was respect at first interaction. Safety was never discussed between them, it was simply felt. For the first time in months, the woman was able to sleep through the night without fear. The man made sure she had a door that locked, warm clothes, and a space of her own. But more than physical safety, he gave her emotional shelter. He never crossed lines, never made her feel like she owed him anything. He restored her sense of autonomy. The widow had come to his door as a beggar, but in his home, she was a guest. Over time, that safety turned into a foundation from which she could begin to rebuild. The unique selling points of this story lie in the unexpected beauty of simplicity and humanity. No dramatic declarations, no grand gestures, just a loaf of bread, a place to sit, and the quiet willingness to help someone who needed it most. In a world where everyone seems to be rushing, this story slows things down. It shows how healing can happen between two strangers when there's no judgment, no expectations, only kindness. The man didn't try to rescue her, he simply opened the door. The woman didn't come seeking romance or redemption, she came looking for food. And yet, the honesty of their interaction created something rare, a connection rooted in trust. The price of this transformation was not measured in money, but in the courage to be vulnerable. The widow had to ask. The man had to answer. Both had to trust. There was no exchange of goods, no favor system, no power dynamic. Just two broken people who, by some quiet miracle, found healing in each other's presence. And over time, what started as charity turned into friendship, and friendship blossomed into something even deeper. In the months that followed, the widow began helping in the home, cleaning, cooking, stitching worn-out curtains. She brought laughter back into the house. The man, who had lived alone for years after losing his own family, found his world expanding. They tended the garden together, adopted a stray dog, and even built a small bookshelf for the woman's favorite novels. When spring arrived, the house was no longer just his. It was theirs. She no longer not. She belonged. The conclusion of their story is not one of fantasy, but of quiet truth. A life was saved not by wealth or rescue missions, but by a simple act of opening the door. One knock changed everything. One loaf of bread reminded a woman that she was still worthy of care. One man's heart reminded the world that kindness still exists. They didn't plan their future. They simply lived it each day, each meal, each shared silence, shaping a life neither of them expected but both of them cherished. And that, in the end, is the true miracle when giving without asking leads to gaining everything you didn't know you needed.